Happy Friday night. Welcome to A Stitch in Crime. I am your host, Jill. How are you guys doing? This is Friday night PJs and Crime, and I am still in my pajamas. So it's a true Friday night Stitch and Crime PJs. Hello and welcome, everyone. Rosie is here, and Tammy. Hi, Sharon. Hi, Tony. Jeannie T is here. Hello, how are you tonight? Are we guys ready? Oh yes, the fourth is coming. It is, it is. We don't have to worry about that out here as far as like fireworks. Hey Sandy, there's my friend Alicia. There is Cindy, knitting artisan. Hola. Chucker Steve is in the house. Hook Hook by Deneen. Sally Birch. All right, the gang's all here. I have my Stitch and Crime blanket. So you guys be watching for, I'm going to put out a couple of videos over the weekend. And one of them will be picking winners for the Stitch and Crime blanket mail. And the other will be winners for the Vicks Flu amigurumi. So those videos will be coming out and I will be showing slideshows and then I will be showing the winners. So be watching for those. They will be coming out this weekend. Hello, Colleen. Hello, Jean. Good to see you. Yes, and happy Canada Day to everyone in Canada. It is their Canada Day. Usually comes right around yeah, right around 4th of July. Okay, now I want you guys to know that I will be doing things just a little bit different today. I hope you will understand, but in order for me to get out the information that I want to get out for you for this case, that I won't be looking at the chat. I'm going to be, if you have questions about anything that's going on, you can ask someone, one of the moderators in the chat, and they will hopefully be able to tell you a little bit more about what's going on. Hi, Maddie boy. And then I will be answering questions at the end, okay? So that way I can go ahead and get this out to you. Okay, y'all ready? Is everybody ready? What are y'all sipping on and what are y'all making? Hello, Bree. Hello, Lori. Yes, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, please. Please subscribe. I do have this one open today so that you can watch even though you aren't a subscriber, but I would really like to have you as a subscriber. A lot of my lives are subscriber only, so you can only comment if you are a subscriber, but I would really like to have you so that you don't miss anything. Oh my gosh. What's better, coffee and chocolate and amigurumi? Yes, and happy 4th of July to us here in the US. Awesome. No, too hot for yarn. That's okay. Okay, you guys, are you ready? Now I'm going to do a recap first, and as I said, I will answer your questions at the end. So here we go. Now, just to recap everything for you, this case is about a young man named Dylan Redwine. I'm going to go ahead and change this view. There we go, so that I'm over here and you guys can see what I'm doing. Dylan was 13 years old, and at the time that this happened to him, he was living in Colorado Springs, Colorado. So I felt a little bit of a connection to this story because my dad lives in Colorado Springs, and I have spent a lot of time in that area. So I feel like I know a little bit about some of what they're talking about. Now, Dylan was a young man who was at 13, was a typical teenager that he was just learning a little more about his hygiene. His brother Corey was teaching him about hygiene and how to put on deodorant, how to take a shower a little more often, change his clothes, all of those things, because 13-year-olds typically, their personal hygiene is something that they don't really pay a whole lot of attention to. Which means that when he went to visit his dad, he didn't take a whole lot. He had his phone, his iPod at that time. He had an iPod, which I did not know that you could actually connect with people on the iPod. That was news to me. He had actually had his laptop. He had a set of clothes. He had some earbuds. He, just regular stuff. He wore shorts even in the winter. He tended to wear shorts. He did have a hoodie, but that was about it. He did not have a coat. So he spent a lot of time. He had really great friends, a whole group of friends. He was a very liked boy, and he had a lot of friends in both Colorado Springs and in Bayfield. Now, as I told you before, Bayfield was where he had lived with his mom and dad before the divorce of his mom and dad. And again, I'm just recapping this for those who may not have heard the full story. He was he had a whole lot of guy friends, but he also had a couple of girlfriends. And so he's really just starting to come into the whole girlfriend thing. And he had one girl that he was talking to that they they flirted with each other, and he had another girl that he kind of was in a relationship with, but they really weren't actually boyfriend girlfriend, and they did not get real serious because things were just kind of up in the air at the time that he even went missing. He was a very social kid. Now, this is all very important later, but he was very social. If his friends texted him, he would text them back right away. If his mom texted him or his brother texted him, he would text back right away. He was not someone who would put them off or ignore things or go long time without contacting someone or talking to someone. He was very, very social. He played a lot of video games where he was, even when he wasn't talking on the phone with someone, he was talking to them in a game, you know. So he arrived in Durango to see his dad, and it was not because he wanted to be there, it was because he was court ordered to do so. He has not seen his dad except for a couple of times in about 3 months because of the custody battle and things that were going on. Now, he'd had a trip with his dad in August, and during that trip is when he got very upset with his dad, and his dad was talking badly about his mother and his brother Corey. His brother Corey was 18 at the time, so he was old enough that he did not have to visit with the dad. He was not court ordered to do so. And during that August trip, Corey asked, Dylan asked Corey to send him pictures. Now, if none of you knows about the pictures, on a previous trip, I believe it was the year before or earlier in the year, and this was 2016, I believe. No, 2012, when he went missing. So earlier in the either in that year or the year before, they had gone on a trip, and Dylan and his brother Corey, Dylan was actually borrowing his dad's laptop, and he found pictures of his dad. And Corey had been looking around at one time when he was at his dad's house. And Corey had found a bag that was like stuck up in a closet. And he's like, "What is that?" You know? And he looked in the bag and he found women's clothing and some guns and just very weird, odd things. And he was like, "What the heck is that? What's that all about?" Then they found these pictures on Mark's computer. Mark is the dad. And the pictures are of him doing something that I'd never heard before, which is called copperphagia or copperphilia, something along those lines, where he actually has a poop fetish, you guys. And these are from now on, these pictures are, and I've described them to you before. If you want to look them up, you can. But it's basically him in a diaper. There's poop involved. He's in women's clothing. It's really bad. And Dylan, from then on out, really can't even stand to be around his dad anymore. He's had it. It really ruined everything for him and his dad, as it would. So go forward now, and in August, when he speaks badly, Dylan wants Corey to send him the pictures. Corey does not want to send the pictures to him. He does not want Dylan to have them or to be responsible for that in any way. Corey winds up texting the pictures that he took of the pictures on his computer to his dad and letting him know that he knows. So now the dad knows that these kids know about it, and there's a lot goes on back and forth between all of them. It's a custody battle going on. It's not pretty at all, any of it. And again, Dylan doesn't really gets to where he doesn't want anything to do with his dad. During the last hearing that they had, that was supposed to tell them where Dylan was going to live, Dylan actually got to see the judge, you guys. He actually got to see the judge, and he is able to tell the judge how he feels about everything. And no one has any testimony or anything that says that he told his dad, the judge, about these pictures. I could not find any evidence of that anywhere, but he did speak to the judge on his own and told him that he wanted to live with his mother. So the judge granted him, he granted custody to his mother, Elaine, who by then had remarried to her husband, new husband named Michael Hall. And he tells Dylan that he has to go by court order to see his dad for Thanksgiving. So this is November of 2012, or right before Thanksgiving, a few days before Thanksgiving. Now, I did find that there was some evidence that prior to this, that Mark had not been seeing these children regularly. So before these few months that were just leading up to all of this, he'd not been seeing them. Okay, he was an over the road trucker. He was working for a company that he was on the road, and he would be gone for weeks at a time. But even when he was home, he wasn't trying to see these kids for like 3 years. So oddly enough, when the custody thing starts, now all of a sudden he decides to take Dylan and Corey, and they go for this trip, this baseball, go see baseball. And he talks about all this in his interview. But he hadn't seen him. There hadn't been a whole lot of interaction between them at all, or Corey. And they were sharing custody of the kids. Now, Mark picked up Dylan at around 5:45 in Durango, and they are seen on camera at the airport. He's obviously moping. He's not happy to be there. And the evidence has shown that within 5 hours, Dylan is dead. Dylan had spent the night before with his friends. Now I'm going to speak a little bit about things that went on during the trial, and they brought in as witnesses. They brought in his friends from there in Colorado Springs. They brought in friends from Bayfield, where they had lived, which is close to Durango. Now, driving Durango is pretty well 5 hours or so from Colorado Springs. Now, he spent the night with his friends, and he told them all. They came in and they testified that Dylan did not want to go to see his dad, that he actually was scared. His friends said he was scared. Now, I don't know that he told his brother or his stepdad or his mom that he was scared. He told them he didn't want to go. And they were interviewed during the trial, and everybody testified that Dylan did not want to go. From the time he gets there, he shows that he doesn't want to be there. They go from the airport to Walmart because Mark says he's got to pick up a few things because he's got nothing in the house. He had just come in from a trip on the truck, and he's got to get some stuff because got to get snacks and got to get this and got to get that. And they showed a whole bunch of footage, and I watched that. You guys, I've been watching these videos. I've been watching one video after another, okay? And in this video at Walmart, they're not even anywhere near each other. They spend 41, 42 minutes in Walmart, and the whole time they are barely anywhere near each other. They're obviously not getting along. They don't have much conversation at all, except they show, and they coordinate the investigation coordinated text messages. Dylan was texting his friends because his stepdad, Michael Hall, was telling him, man, he says, I know you don't want to go, but when you get there, just try and reach out to your friends and go ahead and make some plans with them. And that's how you can spend your time, is with your friends. So Dylan was trying to do this, and he made arrangements. He wanted to go over and spend the night with his friend Ryan. So you can see him on the camera. Him and Mark get together, and Dylan's got his phone in his hand, and he's talking to his dad, and they're having a conversation, which isn't real terribly friendly. And that is when they find out that this is Dylan asking his dad that he wanted to spend the night with his friend Ryan, and his dad said no. And that's when Dylan tells his friend Ryan, he says, I will come and see you in the morning. Can I come about 6:30 in the morning? And Dylan tells him, yes, you can. And Dylan tells his friend Ryan, he says, well, you better let me in, or I will hound your ass until you do. That's what he tells his friend. So they leave Walmart, and Mark wants to go to a restaurant, have a sit-down meal, and Dylan doesn't want anything to do with that. He says, I'd rather just go to McDonald's. So they pull through the drive-through McDonald's, and they are seen on camera at McDonald's. And that is the last time that Dylan is seen on camera or anywhere, is the drive-through at McDonald's. They drive back up to Mark's house. They know that this is true because of the phone. Dylan, again, with Dylan was on the phone with everybody. He talked to his mom. He'd been talking to everybody. So the next morning, now I'm going to go back and forth just a little bit on this. But the next morning, 6:30 in the morning, when Dylan is supposed to be at Ryan's house, he doesn't show up. He does not show up at Ryan's the next morning. And Mark had confirmed to the FBI that Dylan and Ryan had these. He told them that Dylan and Ryan had made arrangements, and he told them, he said that he knew he had something he had to do the next morning, and so he was going to take Dylan to. He was going to go on his way to go to the office in Durango. He would take Dylan over to see Ryan the next morning. That's what what was the plan, that they'd made this plan. Now it's interesting, but the very last so the very last message that Dylan had was at 9:37 p.m. His phone completely went off the grid at 9:46 p.m. His last message with his mom was at 8:09 p.m. The last text message that was ever sent to anybody in the world on his phone was to one of the girls, that her name was Amber Sexton, and she testified that they had a short conversation. They'd been talking, but they had a conversation, and this was one where he and her flirted with each other. And some of what was said was, he said something to her and she said something back, and said, "What are you talking about, sissy?" Because that's what he called her. And she said, "What are you talking about, kitty?" Because that's what she called him. And he says, "You pimpin'," because this was a new thing he was using with talking. And that is the last conversation. Now, Mark tells investigators his story is that Dylan was alive and awake when he went to bed that night, and that he was alive and awake the next morning when he left to go to when he went to go to the office, and that he could not wake Dylan up. Said he couldn't wake him up. That he was alive and he was awake, but he couldn't get him to get up off the couch. So the next day, Mark's story is that he went. Cerberus has got a bone. Got to work on that bone. That he went to the office, and that he was there for a little while, and that he was gonna went over to Durango. He couldn't get Dylan to get up, so he went in and went to the office. That plan was to come back at 11 or 11:30. So now he's saying that was the plan, because he couldn't get Dylan up. That he told him he'd come back about 11:30, and that he came back, and he said Dylan wasn't there. So he lay down, took a nap. He got up around 2 o'clock, and when he could not get Dylan to answer the phone or text messages, then he went to start going to see if he could find him. He went to, he says he went to his friends and all kinds of places and started looking. And then he finally, by that evening, sometime that evening, he messaged Dylan's mother and asked her, because his story was that she must have done something to him. Okay, I'm going to check and see what you guys are talking about. Hi, Chels. Hi, Sue. Are y'all following along okay? Hello, Cheryl. Hello, Lorna. Good to see everybody. Just taking a little break. I've got to get a drink real quick. Okay. So, Mark and Elaine had had a really tumultuous marriage. Part of the reason why she divorced him. He was a drinker. Um, there is some evidence that she also drank, probably because he was a jerk. Uh, he tried to, they, at one time, and I could not find them, but at one time they supposedly had restraining orders against each other, that they'd had an altercation, but I could not find the evidence of that. So I believe that may be just a rumor. I'm really not too sure. But he had a bad habit of losing his temper easily, that he would just like fly off the handle. But Elaine did not ever think that he would be so mad that he would kill her or kill one of the kids. She said she never thought that it was to that degree. Yeah, he got pissed off and he would do stuff, but that's not something she really thought would happen. And Mark was trying to blame Elaine and Corey on snooping on him. Okay. And this is the excuse that he used. Now, a lot of people will project, especially when they're guilty. And they will say, well, they did this and they did that, when actually they're the ones that were doing it. Because one of the reasons that they were upset with him and trying to get things changed was because Mark was breaking into Elaine's house and he stole one of her dresses, and he would say things like, yeah, I took it because if I can't see you in it, nobody can see you in it, and that kind of thing. He actually said that to them, so they knew that he was doing this stuff. Well, he said that they were doing that to him, and so that he staged these photos, the poop pics, that he staged them so that it would be such a big, outrageous deal that they would have to say something. And then he would say, I knew it. I knew you were snooping on me. That's what he claims. Now, Market had a fire, you guys. He had a fire in 2010, and they new paint. He couldn't live in this house for a while. So pretty much that whole time during um, the time when he was not in the house, when he had the fire and things were getting replaced and changed, he didn't have company. He didn't have these kids over. He was gone a lot. But he put in new flooring, he put in new paint on the walls, new walls, all kinds of stuff. And moved back in 2011, and he had new furniture, all new furniture. That was 2011. So that means that obviously Dylan and Corey and them, they could not have been there much in the time frame between that and when Dylan went missing. Mark told the FBI when they came to the house that Dylan was dripping blood in the house. He told them first that Dylan had had a cold sore that broke. Okay. So the FBI, they're like, well, okay, I bet we'll be able to see that on the camera then, you know, because we've got pictures of y'all at the airport and Walmart, and we'll be able to find that. We'll be able to see that on there. We can document that. And then he changes his story again. And then he changes it again. He kept coming up. And then he decides, well, it happened with a Nerf football. So this Nerf football became a real thing, you guys, during the trial. Okay, let me go back to some of the things that happened during the trial because this was very interesting. There's a lot of really interesting DNA stuff that happens, and we're going to have a whole conversation about DNA because I learned a lot about DNA that I had no idea. But I don't want to go into that right now. Now, Mark has an older son named Brandon, and he also has a brother, and their brother lived fairly close in Castle Rock. The first search of Mark's house happened November the 30th. Okay. November the 30th was the first search. Now, Mark was arrested in 2017. The trial got delayed several times. The first time it got delayed, they were gathering evidence and they were getting ready to go to trial. And the first thing that happens is Mark's first defense lawyer got arrested for assault, had to appear in court in orange overalls. What he did was he got drunk and he went over to his girlfriend's and he started slapping the girlfriend on the front porch of her house, getting all pissed off at her, and she files charges against him. So they had a mistrial on that one because the lawyer screwed up. Second round was because of COVID, and they had started the trial, and sometime in 2019, I believe, and they had started the trial. Well, COVID hit, and a whole bunch of the jurors, a whole bunch of the witnesses, um, and the lawyer and everything got COVID, and they the judge declared a mistrial. So the trial actually did not even happen until July of 2021. Dylan was missing from 2000 and November the 18th, November the 19th of 2012. The first remains were found June of 2013. And then Dylan's skull was found in 2015, July, I think. So During the search of Mark's house, there are all kinds of things that happen. They bring in the experts to test. They have what's called presumptive testing. They find blood. They find blood in several places. 5 places in the living room is where they found presumptive. And what the presumptive is, when they spray with the luminol, that shows that there's blood there, and then they take a swab, and then that goes back to the lab and they test it. 2 of those got diluted enough that there wasn't enough to test, but 3 of them were positive for Dylan. And one of those places was the edge of the table in the living room, that there was positive. The top of the couch, right where your legs would be, was positive. The floor under the coffee table in 2 different places, but directly under that corner of that table, under the carpet, was positive, but the carpet was not. There was a presumptive on a pipe in the laundry room, but they did not get enough DNA off of it to make it positive. Now, after they tested it, here's what they came to conclusions wise. The edge of the table had Mark and Dylan. The couch cushion had Dylan. The floor had Dylan and his brother Corey, and the pipe they could not find anything on. And then the spot on the floor. They ran to what was called, like I said, we'll talk about this later, but they ran something called a YSTR, and we'll have to get into what that means. And that's part of how they were able to figure out whose DNA was whose, was because it was the male line. Okay. Now, Mark worked for a company called United Pipeline Systems, and this company installs HDPE in the plastic pipes, the plastic that goes in the oil and gas pipelines. And this was mostly in California and New Mexico that he drove the truck for. And his supervisor's name was Sean Boris, and they interviewed him. They put him on the stand, and he testified that yes, Mark came in on the 19th that morning, but that he looked very tired and very unkempt. And there were several people actually that said this. And he thought it strange that he came in that morning, because it's not something he would not come in and just talk like that. It's just not something he normally did. Now, they had dog handlers, and they had lots and lots of searches, you guys, lots of searches. And Mark honestly did not participate in, from what I was able to get from testimony, was that he only was in on one search, and that search was in an odd place. I can't remember whether it was, I think it was up the mountain on that search, and it was after he told everybody that Dylan's fishing pole was missing. So they had to go look in areas that he might be with the fishing pole. And that was more covering up for himself. Now, the dog handlers, they brought in the dogs, and they Let me go back here. After he said that Dylan dripped blood and gave all these reasons why he dripped the blood, they brought the dogs in, and they found 5 locations for the blood. And then when they brought the dogs in, the dogs actually hit. These were the cadaver dogs, because they had search dogs who initially came in and searched everything around the house, and would go, because they go out in a wider circle each time with the scent. And when they came in and asked Mark for something of Dylan's so that they could do the search for him, he had nothing to give them. He had nothing of Dylan's in the house to give them for a scent. And the handler looked down, and there was a blanket and a pillow laying on the couch. And he said, "Is this where he slept?" He said, "Yeah." He says, "Can I have that pillow?" And he says, "Okay." So he gave him the pillowcase, and the pillowcase did not help. It did not help them to find any scent. And then when they brought in, now they searched, a lot of places. When they came in and they did that initial search, they found there was nothing found, any evidence found anywhere in the drains, in the pipes, in the septic, in the crawl space. There was a shed behind the house. There was no evidence there. There was no evidence in the camper that was behind there. There was no evidence anywhere in the backyard, nothing. They had a dive team. They had, again, like I said, they had sonar. They couldn't find anything that way, even though the dogs had hit on the water. The dogs did hit on the water. The only things of Dylan's that were found in the house, his boarding pass from that day that he flew up, his boarding pass was found in the bathroom where he had left it. It was still there. And then there was a school report that Dylan had done, and that school report was laying somewhere in a room upstairs. And then they said they found. I was a little confused about the laptop, because I believe they found the laptop and they used that as digital evidence, but they found nothing else. No clothing. His phone, they never did find. It did not ping anywhere outside of that area. Anywhere. It just went dead. So those dogs hit on 43 locations. This is the cadaver dogs finding the scent of a body, of a body, not of a person, but of a body, a cadaver dog. 43 locations in the house, around the house, in Mark's truck, around the truck, in the bed of the truck. The clothes that Mark was wearing and was seen on him in the Walmart video, all of those had the scent of the cadaver dogs picked up a scent of a body. That night when they were doing that first night, the 18th, when they were doing the search, Mark didn't help with the search, and he turned the light off at 11 o'clock. The night before, the neighbors said that night light was on till like 2 o'clock in the morning. Most nights, he hardly ever turned it off. That night, the first night of the search, he turned it off at 11 o'clock. And the next morning, they're still searching. They're up. The searchers are back out when at daybreak, and they're searching again right across the road from where Mark lives, and he sits on the front porch with his coffee and watches them. Okay, let's see if y'all have any questions. How are we doing? Are y'all hanging in there? Woo! Isn't it? It is so. I'm telling you guys, I used to watch quite a bit of court TV, okay? And I need to speak a little bit about this court case now. The lawyer that winds up replacing Mark's lawyer after the COVID and the mistrial and all of that stuff, it's like the judge was having to teach him how to be a lawyer. It was painful to get through some of this stuff. The prosecution would come up and he would say what was going on, and he would do the whole thing, and he would, interview the person on the stand, do the whole thing. The defense lawyer would come back and he would go through the entire thing again. And I watched this several times before I started to go through, and I mean, some of it I'm just not going to watch the defense, to be honest, because he did not get any new information when he interviewed them on the stand. In his cross-examination, there was no new information. He was just having them reiterate this over again. This trial went much longer than they were supposed to go, because this defense lawyer, the way that he had, he definitely was a defense lawyer, because he was interjecting every time you turned around. And the judge would have to tell him, no, yeah, we're not going to go there, or we're not going to do this, or we're not going to do that. It's like he was having to teach him how to be a lawyer. It was very sad. The whole thing was very sad, really. And it's not that he didn't get a good defense. Okay. Don't get me wrong when I say that. It's just that it was just long drawn out, very long and drawn out. You know what? That's a very good, that is a very good possibility, that he destroyed the phone to get rid of. But no, Jeannie, Dylan did not have the phone pictures. He got rid of the phone so nobody would know where Dylan was. Dylan didn't have the pictures. Corey's the one that had the pictures, and Corey sent them to his dad. He never would send them to Dylan. You did watch it, so you see how painful it was, Lorna. Oh my gosh, it was just, yeah, it was hard to get through. It really was. It's okay. So some of the other things that came up during us, now just so you know, when everything was found, June 13th, June of 2013, when they found Dylan's remains, the first batch of remains, they decided that that was the body dump site, you guys, was where they found the first remains. And Mark called. This was when they announced it. They didn't announce it until the 27th of June of 2013. A couple days later, when they confirmed, Elaine saw the stuff. Mark wasn't there to see it. Elaine saw it, and she said it was Dylan's. Corey said it was Dylan's. Mark calls his son Brandon, and here's what's interesting about Brandon, Mark's other son, is that Brandon hasn't seen his dad very much either. This is somebody from another marriage, a previous marriage before Dylan and Corey. And he had the same issue where he was court ordered to have to see his dad. And Brandon knew all along his dad was fishy. There was something fishy with his dad. And he said that his dad called him and said that, let me get the quote here. I wrote his quote down. Oh, now I can't find it. He told Brandon that they weren't going to be able to figure out if it was blunt force trauma without the skull. That's what he told Brandon when they found the dump site and the first remains, because the skull was not found with that. The first time was a clavicle. There was a rib that was found a little farther. When they started searching that area, they found a rib. They found a few other things in that area. They found the earbuds. They found a shirt that was all torn up, a black shirt, and it was the one that he'd had on in the videos. They found a band off of his underwear. They found a shoe and a sock, but they did not get any blood or anything off of those items. There was no blood found on those items. And no skull. And then in 2015, in June of 2015 is when they found the skull. And it was found by, and the lady came on and testified that she and her husband were out walking and they found the skull, and it took 2 days to find the spot where it was, because she was unsure when they went back, when they took the authorities back out there, they had a hard time finding it. It was so remote. They never found his backpack. They never found his phone. They never found the iPod. There was a whole bunch of stuff that they never, ever found and still has not been found. And so, just so you know, he was sentenced to 48 years. He got 48 years, and it was second degree murder in the second, and child abuse resulting in death. That is what he got 48 years for. It's possible. It is possible, Patricia. They really don't know. The skull showed that he had blunt force trauma, and that there had been stabbing of some sort with something sharp at the base of the skull. So that is a possibility. But that is what was, it was, that's what was seen uh, on the skull itself. And and this was last year in 2021 when he got sentenced, and he's 60 years old. Now he's already had one appeal, and it didn't do anything for him. They were like, no. So he's already had one appeal. But I'll tell you, this particular trial was just, it was a slog to get through because of everything that went on with these lawyers. It was really hard. And it's just really sad. It's another really sad case with a young boy who was just, they said he just lit up the room, that he was just always so easygoing, you know, and you know, he really tried, but once the whole thing with the pictures and the way he was being with the way the dad was being mean, I can tell you this from my own experience, you guys. My own dad, not my dad, who is my stepdad, you guys. When I talk about my dad, that's my stepdad. My real dad, uh, my mom and dad and I were in Germany. And while we were in Germany, my real dad would write to me. And he began to write things about my mother and how she would was trying to control this, and she was trying to control that, and she was doing this and she was doing that, and he actually called her names a couple of times. Now I would have been in high school then. It would have been about freshman year or so, between freshman and sophomore year. After freshman year, I had come back to the States and visited him, and then I had gone back. So this is somewhere about my sophomore year. So I would have been old enough, to certainly old enough to know better about this stuff. And I just told my mom, I didn't, if he writes me again, don't give them to me. I don't want his letters. I'm not putting up with that. There's no reason for him to talk that way about you. There's no reason to even talk about it. There's just no reason to it. So I think I can understand that feeling. It sucks when the parents think that they have to. It's hard, and it's hard on the kids, and I know it is. So this is the kind of thing that was going on with him and Dylan, and I'm pretty sure they got into it. Yes, it was. And they didn't even say, from what I saw, they still didn't even say everything that they could have said. They only spoke about what they were asked. Now, you guys, this case, there was a whole bunch. I showed you, I got in trouble last time when I was showing the Dr. Phil stuff. So I decided I wasn't going to show the Dr. Phil stuff this time. Yeah, little digs. And that's the thing. And when parents do that, it really does. I know this from experience. It's not good for anybody. It's just not good for anybody. Yeah. Well, last I saw he was still alive, but you know, and that is a life sentence. 48 years for him is a life sentence. Absolutely. He'll never get out. No. So, did I miss any other questions? Did you guys have any other questions about the case that maybe that you're not clear about, that maybe I can answer? I first became interested in this because he was a missing person. Well, that's true. Not everyone who has children are good parents. That is true. And a lot of them don't, they're not good parents together either. They sometimes learn because they can't come to an understanding when they are together, the parents. They learn sometimes when they are apart, and they are better apart than they are together. Sometimes. I still got to fix that Instagram thing. It is so sad. I mean, and you know, we, we've talked quite a bit about crazy mothers who, this is another case called parricide, and that is when parents kill their children. And there's no doubt that he did it. No doubt. It's quite possible he hit him over the head with that pipe. And then whatever he did, whatever sharp object he used, and moved everything, because there's no way they found that dump site for the body, and the head was, what did I tell y'all? It's like 6 miles, 5 to 6 miles away from that. Thank you. Toxic parents. It is very, there's a lot of similarities in these toxic parents. So the next case, I don't know quite for sure what my next case is. I know what I'd like to do, but I'm not quite sure yet. I have some ideas. Oh, thank you. Yes, I am ready to move on because we've done this for 2 weeks now, and I did a thorough, like, I didn't watch everyone. There were 71 of those videos, but I watched a lot of it. I'm kind of thinking if you guys want to, well, there is another trial going on right now, um, of a mother who killed her teenage daughter. If y'all saw that one. And I thought about watching that one since it's going on now. I could watch it from the beginning and not have to go back and watch so many. Exactly. They had experts come in about that, Jeannie T, about the animals, because this is what the defense wanted to say. This is what Mark wanted to say, was that the animals um, had done it, but there were no teeth marks anywhere on any of the bones. And the only thing they found was soft tissue type stuff. So they did find some fingers and toes, and those were in with some scat from an animal, but those are soft tissue areas. Those are not hard bones. So that's the only, and they were really close to where they found the first stuff. So they weren't far. No, I think it's called parricide. When the I want to say it's parricide when the parent kills the child. I'll have to look it up to make sure. Dylan looks like my youngest grandson who's 14. Can't, yeah, it's just awful. It is awful what they do. Okay, you guys, I think Duty Ron is, I did not think I would get through this before Duty Ron came on. However, I am pretty well done unless you guys have any other questions. And then we can go over to, I can drop Duty Ron's link and you guys, we can go over there. He just started. So, filicide, deliberate act of a parent killing their own child. Okay. So, parricide must be when children killed their parents. I've got that backwards. That's me, dyslexia. It's the first time a dyslexia has come out in a while. Trying to get all these, you got homicide and all of those. Oh, that's for sure. Oh my gosh, you guys, that is for sure. Absolutely. I had to. I have been really. Oh, now y'all are looking up the words. Matricide is killing the mother. Okay. Matricide, I think is how you would say that. How are the boys tonight, Chels? Talking about Dylan Rounds. Yes, there's some new information. So let me see if I can grab his link real quick. One moment, please. Just in case you guys would like to go over there. Crafty Nomad is also live in case anyone wants to go to see her also. There we go. I've got the link for Duty Ron, which somebody probably has already done it. All right, here is Duty Ron's link if you guys would like to go. When a father is killed by the child, it's patricide. Maybe that's the one I was thinking of. So matricide and patricide. Thank you, Sandy. There's another case that's in Colorado that I'm probably going to cover when I go to see my dad, because I'm hoping I will be able to go to some of the places from where Dylan and lived and stuff and get maybe some footage up there, and also get footage from the one that I know about, which happened going up towards when Dad and I go to the casino, it's on the way up there. Infanticide is killing a baby. Yeah, see, there's a whole bunch of them. It's hard to keep them straight. But matricide and patric, now that you guys have said that, I bet I can keep that straight. I bet I can that one. We'll see. Yes, that's it. That is it. Woodland Park. On the way up to up at Woodland Park, there's a Walmart up there where this gal that went missing, and that's a case that I want to cover on in Colorado. And there's another one that Cheryl knows about too. She'll have to send me that. You'll have to email me that information again too. Okay, well, I was close. Parasites killing a parent or a near relative. But the DNA stuff, you guys, oh, unbelievable. Okay, I'm going to go. Thank you guys so very much for being here. I appreciate it. And this was fun. A true Friday night PJs with the wild hair and everything. You guys have a great night. I appreciate all of you. Don't forget the thumb. And thank you those that are watching this back on replay. I appreciate you all very much. All right. Take care, you guys. Have a great night and have fun today. Bye, everybody.